Welcome to the Happy Homeschooler Podcast, a digital support group for everyone interested in a learning lifestyle. I'm your host, Melody.
I'm your co-host, Holly.
How have you been, Holly?
Well, I'm in the middle of planning a birthday party for my son who's turning 8. And pandemic birthday party planning is really exhausting.
Oh, my goodness. I think pandemic planning anything is exhausting.
This is true.
Too many extra steps. So what are you having to figure out differently?
Well, so my in-laws are both in their late 70s. And they want to see him for his birthday. Wow. And we want to see them. But, we can't congregate inside their house. Mm-hmm. Fortunately, they have a screened-in porch. And we're going to have the party out there. And my sister-in-law, who is the guardian of her parents' health, I had a plan with her to make sure everything was acceptable.
Yes.
And so we're going to just make sure we have that 6 feet of distance. We're going to have cupcakes, so there's no blowing on no blowing candles out on any cake. So that's birthday party number 1. It's a small family birthday party.
Okay.
Then birthday party number 2 is for friends.
Oh, and you can't just do one.
Well,
you got to separate.
Right. And so the friend party is going to be outside in our backyard, and it's going to be a water party. So I bought a splash pad that you hook up to your hose, and it sprinkles. Uh-huh. And we have a game where the kids they put a water balloon. They shoot this ball towards each other until somebody gets wet, and squirt guns. So everything I've read is water and open air is really safe. So and I had to buy a canopy because we don't have a lot of shade in our backyard.
Oh man!
But it's cheaper than some of the parties we've done at facilities. So I think I was pretty creative. But again, since we were only having a really small guest list. It was real important that everybody could come. So then I had to coordinate with 3 other families and schedules with kids who are from divorced families. And when's your kid with you? Oh my goodness, yes. So I've got it all planned out. We've got the dates set. And then once we make it happen, I'll just lie down in a heap, I think. What about you? What have you been up to?
Well, the weather changed for us.
Oh, yes.
So, and I'm thinking about your party. You're hoping for a return of warmer temperatures.
It does look like it'll be in the upper 80s by then. So,
right.
But kids don't care either.
No, kids don't care.
Yeah.
But
it could
we
be raining,
adults
they'll
do.
be out
Yeah.
there.
Well, if it's a water party and you're raining, as long as there's no thunder, you're fine.
Well, right. No, if there's any lightning and thunder, then that's a whole nother issue. So.
Another issue. But for us, the weather change meant we could get some things done outside, and then it feels a little bit like fall, so a little bit of fall decorating. And
oh, yeah. I'm going to hold off until the first day of fall. Because I leave them all up until Thanksgiving. I don't want to see...
Not for that long. Well,
no.
You also have a birthday party.
Right. We have a birthday party. Yeah.
So, but that's going on. And on the other hand, I feel like I'm just doing planning and teaching and planning.
How's your teaching going?
Teaching, and it's going really well. There's a little bit of a learning curve because there's some new technology, which is good.
Oh, yeah.
But a learning curve. But I just feel like it reminds me of when I first began homeschooling decades ago. All the planning and trying to wrap my head around how I was going to do this and how was I going to fit all this in. And I felt like all I ever did was teach and plan, and when was I going to actually live? So I'm having a little bit of that right now because there's just a lot of planning.
Sure enough.
Different classes. But
I think a lot of people are in that mode right now.
I think so, and I think that we could go ahead and talk about homeschool survival. I've seen a lot of people on social media and just people talking to me about trying to figure out how are they going to do this thing. They're a few weeks in. Some just started this week.
Right.
Some people were
Some
waiting.
haven't started yet. So
everybody in all different stages.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, I know that last week or the last episode, so a couple weeks back, we were talking about how people were just getting their curriculum because they were waiting to see what the schools were doing and then deciding to withdraw their kids. So some people have been homeschooling a few weeks. Some people are just about to start. So yeah, we are in our 3rd week. We're finishing up our 3rd week of school.
How's that going?
Well, I've been homeschooling now 27 years, and some things I'm like, oh yeah, I expected that, but every year is different. And even if you're an experienced homeschooler, especially if you had a break in the summer, which we did, then you have to pull back into a different lifestyle, right?
Right. Re-entry. We always call that re-entry.
Exactly.
Get your routines going again.
Right.
But even if you had a routine that was beautiful and wonderful and everything always worked out, when you start again, things have changed.
Well, yeah, your kids
are older,
several months older, and a lot of development happens in kids in the summer.
Oh my goodness. For one thing, you can see the growth.
Oh, indeed. My son needs new pants.
Yes. Every fall, everybody's got high waters.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Every fall. But so what kind of things threw you for a loop? Or has anything what kinds of things are making you rethink your plans?
Well, I work from home. And so during the summer, I was able to get more work done during the day. Now, that part of the day where I was using to do some work, we're doing school. So I'm having to tighten up everything. I have to be more intentional about what time do we have dinner, and then getting my son to bed on time so that after he's asleep, I can head into my office and get some work done. So, and I think a lot of people, when they start homeschooling, they don't realize that they just took on a new full-time job.
Exactly.
They were like, oh, we're just going to homeschool. And I've been, especially if you've been a stay-at-home parent.
I'm already home.
I'm already home, but you just don't realize you just took on a new full-time job, and then you still have all the other parts of your life. People still need to eat. Sometimes you got to go to the doctor. You might have, we have a social group though, so we get together with some folks once a month to do some outdoor stuff. So you have to put all these pieces of this puzzle together, and sometimes you're not sure, like you put it together, but there's still another piece you got to fit in there. So I think for me, and I would encourage everybody just to figure out a schedule, not a rigid blow a whistle, check, but a general schedule. So for us, the morning is used for household tasks. Take care of the dog, put away the dishes, all those things, and then we start school, which usually means we're starting school around 11 from our family. Everybody's family is different, but I work late,
you're working at night.
I don't get up early. And then we school maybe from 11 till 2, but we've got breaks in between there. We're not schooling solid. We're eating, we're taking a break maybe to go outside and run out some energy. And then when we finish up, I get in my office to do some work, and my son gets to have some TV time. But in the middle of all that, we've got he's got a checklist that he's got to handle, so that we're making sure responsibilities are done and certain things are met at certain times. And so I think that's key. What did you do did you have a certain routine for your homeschool?
We did, and it was very similar to that. And so, like I tell people all the time, you were busy before you added homeschooling and became, before you were intentionally a learning lifestyle. So you have to find those little pockets of the day that you can squeeze in these new things, or figure out the things where you can be doing two things at once.
That is so key. And that's what I've been seeing on my list, is moms saying, oh my goodness, I'm 3 days in. I don't know if I made a good decision. How am I getting this done? How do I do school with my 6-year-old, and I've got an infant, And so it takes some out of the box thinking.
Just have to we do, in a lot of ways, we get that. Like, nobody stands there and watches the washing machine do it. Well, I hope not. I hope nobody is watching the washing machine. There are things you can get going and go ahead and do something else, and then come back to that. And so you just have to find the things in your homeschool that can work the same way. And one of the things that my kids always had was a journal that they knew to get started writing in their journal. There were a lot of reasons they did that, partly to practice writing. And I could see where they were incorporating the learning. Did they capitalize things? Did they use punctuation? I mean, I used it for a lot of things, but one of its purposes was to keep them occupied in a productive activity for a little amount of time where I could be getting something else done. Right. So that was something. And then
kids left to their own devices during
they're so creative.
That's a generous term, or destructive, as some folks have been describing things their kids have gotten into. But yeah, that makes sense. You've got to have a plan ahead. So when I was homeschooling a whole group of kids, my first 5 kids, they had handwriting practice that they could do on their own.
Right. That's
so that
a
was
good
on
example.
the top of their stack. So I would say, go get your handwriting. But before we even started school, they had responsibilities.
So did mine.
Mm-hmm.
Take care of the pets or water the plants. Or we did, going back to what you said earlier, we definitely had a routine where we had breakfast and we did our Bible study at breakfast because they were all there.
Right.
But backing up, before breakfast, everybody needed to be dressed. And they had made their bed or tidied up the room because I knew that if they went back in their room...
Oh, you would lose them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to do that.
It's like a vortex. It just sucks them in.
And they disappear.
Yeah.
So they had those morning things, those getting ready for the day kind of things.
And can I just say, okay, I love the people who say, it's okay to homeschool in your pajamas.
You can do that.
And I think it is okay to homeschool in your pajamas for mom, dad, whoever's teaching, for kids sometimes. But I really look at being a home educator as a job, and I want to bring my best self to that job as often as I can. I feel better, and I feel like I have more invested in my day when I get up and get dressed and fix my hair, maybe put on a little makeup. I'm not saying you have to do that, and if you're ready to roll just out of bed, that's cool. But I just want to encourage you that if you think of this as a job that you want to bring your best self to, do what would give you that professional feeling, so to speak. And I think it's the same thing for kids. Pajamas for kids means relaxing. So when I tell my son, it's time to get dressed, let's get dressed. And boy, all of a sudden he's really ready to go. But in pajamas, he's pretty relaxed.
Right. We found that it's something about that mindset and what that implies or what that subconsciously tells you.
Right. It tells
you're
you that,
ready.
This part of the day is over and here's this part of the day coming up. So I would just like to encourage people to try it and see if it gets you a better result. That's good.
Try it both ways and see what happens. The bonus of being dressed and ready for the day is that when unexpected things happen, you are ready to run out the door.
That is true. Or if someone shows up unexpectedly.
Oh my goodness, that happened to us all the time. People were always dropping in, which we loved. Mm-hmm. But there was one time where, we had a late night. We were getting a slow start. We were all still in our pajamas and hadn't even eaten breakfast yet. We had some drop-in company, and that was like, this is why I get up and get ready.
Right, yeah. It just helps. I think it just helps you to get your day going in a more productive manner. So,
right.
If you're feeling overwhelmed, you might want to look at the day and see, where can I make these points that signal we're shifting into a new thing so that we can have people ready to learn. And also schedules are so good for kids.
They do better
when they know what to expect. They aren't testing you so much to figure out, is this rule today the same as it was yesterday? Because kids will test you, and that takes up a lot of time, constantly having to go over the same ground again and again.
It does take time. You can get a whole lot more done when everybody's on the same footing and you're ready to go. You don't have to spend any more time having that same discussion again.
Yes. So we have the 21 rules of this house that I've had on my refrigerator. Oh my goodness, probably since 1995 when I saw Greg Harris, whose son was the creator of it. He and his family all worked together to create it. But the rules are the same for adults and kids in our household. And so when something happens, we just go and look, and then we're like, yeah, we broke that rule. But it's very helpful because we're all on the same page, and it's something that my kids heard over and over again. If everybody's not having fun, it's not fun. That means you can't tease your brother or sister. If you get something out, put it away. So all I have to do is walk into the living room and say to my little guy, did you get such and such out? And he goes, I know. I have to go put it away. So
They're
it's
just rules for life.
They are just rules for life and helping you to consider others. But if you don't have any rules and you're constantly have to figure out on the fly, how do I address this situation? Coming up with rules will help you. And again, I think that's why so many new homeschoolers or even established homeschoolers feel overwhelmed, is because they don't have a compass to get them from point A to point B. And if you have that plan, then you don't have to keep plowing that road every single day.
Right. There's a Charlotte Mason quote about something about habits are like the rails of a train, that so that you don't have the wear and tear of decisions making things happen. I don't remember what it was, but basically that idea just saves you from mental energy spent on things that could already be established.
And it's the same thing. So, we were talking about homeschooling, have a schedule, and then you still have to eat, right? You still have to do all these things. So if you have a homemaking schedule, and you do certain things, we've talked before about how we water plants on Wednesdays.
Yes.
But then you don't have to use up precious mental energy trying to decide when to do something. Monday you do the wash, or Wednesday you water the plants, or Friday you change the air conditioner filters, or whatever it is. Those kind of things help you so that you don't have to keep trying to think of what to do. You already know what to do. It's something that's in your schedule.
Right. And if you get up in the morning and you know what's going to happen that day, that does help you jump in and get going and get started. And so that's where our routine was so helpful. We got all that household things taken care of, and we ate breakfast, and then after breakfast we do school. Was just the way we did things for years and years and years.
And then it's a routine. Everybody knows what to do.
Then there would be a break, time to change the laundry. We'd stop and take care of some things and then shift to the next subject. And I think in the beginning, years ago, I spent a lot of time trying to figure it out. But what I learned was you just jump in and get going. It's getting the things done. And then as time goes by, you realize, I could maybe put these two activities together,
right,
and save some time there. Or as you go along, you decide that something in your curriculum is not working for you or not necessary for you, and you modify it. And the longer you do it, the easier it gets.
That's true. And then sometimes, no matter how long you've been doing it, you still run into some bumps. But at least you have a schedule that helps you smooth over those bumps.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, let's take a short break to hear a word from our sponsor, and when we return, talk about some more ways to get through your first year or any year of homeschooling.
Our podcast today is sponsored by Transcript Maker. It's an online service that allows you to create professional high school transcripts in the comfort of your own home.
Well, we're talking about survival today, and I feel like Transcript Maker serves a real need there, because it's really hard when you feel like you have to be responsible for everything, and they take a part of that load off of you.
Oh my goodness, yes. It does help not to have to be the administrator creating some Excel spreadsheet, trying to figure out how to do weighting of courses. Transcript Maker does all that for you.
Do they have a support, like a customer service, if someone ran into problems?
They sure do. You can call them, you can email them, and on their website they have a little thing that says Help Center. And if you click on that, there's tons of articles that have been written to help people as they're creating transcripts. They've thought of everything.
Oh, it's so good. That is a really, everybody should know about that. They're part of their survival guide.
I think so too. Get your 14-day free trial
at www.transcriptmaker.com.
Transcript Maker, simply better transcripts.
Let's get back more into our discussion about surviving and thriving while homeschooling. What kinds of things are you seeing people talk about?
Well, the topic of the harder subjects is coming up a lot.
Like high school subjects or
just math.
Math.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people talking about math on different sites that I'm part of. Even as for 6-year-olds, math.
I think that makes sense because curriculum has changed, or the books have changed. The way they present those concepts has changed since parents were in school.
Right.
So it doesn't look like what they're expecting, or they're working more on thinking mathematically or numerically.
Exactly. Yeah, that Common Core kind of thinking that none of us were taught, and so it may be a little foreign to us.
We learned the, here's the application of how you do it, but not always why it works that way.
Exactly. So people are saying, I have a curriculum, but I still need more help. So people, are looking for resources. Of course, we talked in a previous episode about Khan Academy being a very good resource, but some curriculum also have online resources. Like Math UC has some extra practice, and I think Saxon has practice, and there are videos, I think, even on their websites.
Right. You can actually find some things on YouTube, different teachers teaching different lessons. Nicole the Math Lady, if you're a Saxon person, has really good videos that I found. But most curriculum, there is some customer service line that you can call and get some help, or they can direct you to some other resources, or find someone that you know that loves math. I'm doing a lot of math tutoring right now.
Okay.
And
do you love math?
I do love math.
Oh, I did not know that about you.
I do. Math makes sense to me. So but I enjoy helping a student figure out, like, where's the gap in their learning, and then find the bridge from what they know to what they don't know, or how to figure it out, or how to understand it.
Sure. And people whose kids are homeschooling for the first year coming from public school, they might have a gap that the parent wasn't aware of until now when they're starting to work with them.
Right.
So, yeah, finding those resources. And, of course, because we're in this pandemic, face-to-face instruction might be hard to find, but there is plenty of help online.
There is. And I will say, if you are someone who's got a student doing virtual, it's really, math is tricky to help correct virtually, send something back, and then they send it back to you for corrections. It's much easier if you're sitting together. So I do see a lot of people posting that they're available for tutoring, and most of those are math people that are, if you need help with math, let me know and I'll see if I can help you. But I hadn't really thought about it being a consistent, like, I just hadn't realized that a lot of people were struggling with math.
Yeah, I think for a lot of people, math wasn't their strong suit, and they're worried that they're going to mess up their kids with their math, because math is so important.
It is so important. But basically, if you have younger children, you do start with the basics of how many are 5, and show me 8 things. And so you can always fall back to the really basic things while you're figuring out how to, maybe understand the curriculum that you purchased. Reach out to the curriculum provider. You
can also look for Facebook groups for your curriculum.
Yes, you can.
So there are a lot of people, like Saxon math users. They have a group, and in that group you can ask people, how did you teach this concept or whatever? And people are just always so willing to help. So there are plenty of resources. Don't get too worried if you're running into that math wall.
Right.
Just take a deep breath and try different resources till one makes sense to your kid. I remember when I was in high school, I was taking Algebra 1, and the teacher I had, I just really couldn't understand her. And the next year in Algebra 2, the teacher I had, it was like everything he said made sense. He was able to present concepts to me in a way that I could understand. And I know as a home educator, like, I would really love to be the person that can unlock all the mysteries for my kid, but I know that I can't. And I had to get myself out of the way and realize, other people can help my kid. And the whole point was, I wanted my kid to be successful. So if you're not able to unlock the mystery of a certain topic, math, English, some sciences, it's okay. You're the facilitator. You're the home educator. You're the administrator of your school, but you don't have to teach everything.
That's
you
true.
can find another resource to help you.
You can farm that out.
Don't stress yourself out trying to be everything. It's not going to help you survive.
No, and you don't want your children to associate stress with certain topics.
Right.
So you got to kind of be aware of that.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's some resources for math. What other kind of things are you seeing out there?
Well, so I went through this and you went through this when you have multiple children of different ages.
Yes.
So I'm seeing people say, one precious lady, 3 days in, I'm ready to give up. I don't know how to manage this with my first grader and my baby.
I saw that too. You're like, okay, it's 10 o'clock. I'm done.
Right, 10 o'clock. Another cup of coffee.
Can't figure this out. And it's partly because people with those younger children are not sure what to do with that little toddler. They need to sit down and do some really heavy-duty work with the older one. And you can't just let those little people entertain themselves unless you want to find a
They entertain
crazy
themselves
disaster.
by pouring an entire
Toy
bottle
dumping.
of shampoo down the drain, or put on all your makeup on their body, or some
I've seen some
thing.
really funny pictures. I know. I was like, oh, I'm sorry, but I'm laughing.
Right.
For us, we started with the little ones first. We did we pretty much went youngest to oldest. The older ones had things that they could do.
They could do independently,
things. And I was working with the little ones. Even if it was, our school might be puzzles or blocks or Play-Doh,
a little preschool.
Or something like that. And I got the little ones going. And when they were occupied and busy, and then also they knew that they were important and they weren't feeling left out or pushed to the side.
Right.
Got the little ones going and then checked in with the older ones. And sometimes the oldest one would have, entertain the baby for a half hour while I work with the second grader.
Right. That's called child development on your transcript.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's what it's called.
Yeah.
So, I have 7 children, but I think at any one time there were only 6 actively schooling. Either someone was a baby or a toddler or high school later on.
Right.
So there were, I had to find ways to juggle 6 people's learning.
Right.
And that's what we did.
Well, and you can do a lot of things together. So, for example, if you say you have a 5th grader and a 1st grader and a baby. When the 5th grader's doing a science experiment, everybody can go and be watching that science experiment at that time. When the baby goes down for a nap, that's when you might want to do your math or your something that's
or phonics
or something that requires a lot of concentration. And when you have a baby, they're not the same every month, so you're just going to have to keep adjusting.
That's a good point.
Right?
They
yeah.
change all the time.
Oh my gosh, yeah. They have a 10 o'clock nap, and that's great. They nap from 10 a.m. to noon. Oh, and then the next month, now they don't want to take a morning nap. What do you do? So you just have to be flexible and keep adjusting. And maybe, go out in the backyard and let the little toddler play in the sandbox while you read aloud to the older child. I mean, you're just going to have to put on your thinking cap. And again, and I know we say this all the time, but I don't think we can say it enough. Get involved with some local groups, Facebook groups, and ask people, what are you doing? What did you do? And my goodness, people will tell you stuff and you're like, oh, I don't know why I didn't think of that. It makes so much sense. And you also can feel more supported. Like, I'm not alone in the fact that I'm trying to read a book to my 6-year-old and my toddler's trying to rip the book out of my hands.
Pages out, right.
Right, yeah. So
it does help to know you're not the only one struggling.
It really does.
Like that. And then some of those things are just a matter of figuring it out as you go.
You can do math with your older kid at 8 o'clock at night if the baby goes down at 7.
Yeah.
There's no reason why your school has to fit into a traditional school hour schedule.
Right. You make it fit your family.
Yeah, make it fit your family.
We generally like to try to get most of the 3 R's done before lunch. And then we mentioned before about we did unit studies so that we could all study the main science or history together. And we tried to be finished at 3. But I have a really good friend who's their school hours, her husband worked nights. And somehow or other, their whole day was adjusted to where they had their family time in the morning, and then when he left for work, that's when they did their school time at night.
My husband had Wednesdays off for a while, so we didn't do school on Wednesdays.
Right.
So we could spend time with Dad. And that's another point that I'd like to make. So a lot of curriculum is set up for a 5-day school week. Most of the time I homeschooled, I did a 4-day school week, which meant I did a little more on Monday, a little more Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So we could get all the 5 days done in 4. But the reason I did that was that, number one, so Fridays was often a field trip day, or it was a catch up on the housework day, or just a fun day. But it takes a lot of pressure off if you've got a flexible day that you can use for other things. Maybe you take that Friday and you only make your doctor's and dentist appointments on Fridays. But it's really important to realize that you're in charge of your homeschool and your homeschool schedule, and you do it in a way that makes it fit you.
Right.
Yeah.
And I am seeing a lot of people will say, like, oh, my child is bored with this curriculum. They can do the whole week's worth of lessons in one day. And they just need to be told, sure, go ahead. That's fine, but don't overload your child.
Sure.
But if the pacing is too slow for your learner, you can pick up the pace. If it's going too fast, you can slow down. So we did some things like that because on that flex day, I felt more comfortable about using our games that we had, math games and language games instead of our lesson. Because for some reason, if it's in the lesson, you kind of feel like you should do it.
Right. We talked about that before as well. And, how people sometimes are too tied up with that schedule. And they miss out on some opportunities.
You don't want to mess up. So, but having that extra day, it was like, oh, we're going to play this game for our lesson today, and that it wasn't scary. It wasn't like I was leaving something out or going to miss something.
Kids something to look forward to. If
they
they might work a little harder knowing that on Friday we have these fun things to look forward to. My son right now, he's got a little schedule, and every day at 6:00 he has to go clean up his room. And if he has his room cleaned up by his time of 6:00, then the next morning when he wakes up, he's allowed to watch TV while I'm still asleep. And if he's in bed on time, and he's in bed on time the whole week, on Friday night, we have a movie night. And you have never seen a child rush to get to bed so fast in your life as that little boy since we started this. And
you found a good motivator.
Yeah, he loves it. Well, today's Friday, so tonight we're going to watch Shrek 3. We'll have some pizza, probably buy a little bit of candy, and it's just a real fun thing to look forward to.
Well, it's always good to have things like that built in so you have all those pleasant memories. We had a Friday movie night in our family, and over time it kind of, everybody was busy on Friday night. We didn't do it anymore, but for a long time everyone looked forward to that movie night on Friday, and family movie night. That
helps everybody, I think. Parents and kids alike, when you have goals and you're working towards a goal and you have a reward, then everybody gets to enjoy that. So I think that's really another good point, is that when you have a bunch of different ages, or even if you just have one child you're homeschooling, is that have some requirements and rewards, responsibilities and rewards, because that's real life, right? When you go to work, you have projects and project deadlines, and then when you meet those projects and project deadlines, like my daughter, who's a bank branch manager, she gets a bonus when she meets those certain points, and she'll call me, guess who's getting the biggest bonus in my district? I'm like, of course it's you. But it's real life. Real life has responsibilities and rewards or penalties, and if so you don't get things done, you can use those things in your homeschool to make your homeschool run more smoothly.
You sure can. And you mentioned, like, he has that 6:00. We had 5:00 pickup at our house because I wanted to make sure at the end of the day all of the mess that we made all day long was put away before we started, the evening mess.
Exactly.
But we just had checkpoints throughout the day where we would stop and straighten up and get things back to where they belong, because otherwise it would just
becomes
snowball.
Chaos. Yeah. You can't work productively if you have chaos. And getting good organizers also. That will help too. When you have a place for all of your homeschool materials, a place for your child's materials, that makes it much easier to get your day going and get your schooling done. And I know we didn't really talk about that, but I was just thinking about it.
Well, but it does help you survive. That's one of those survival skills, like knowing where things are, being able to get them within, without wasting a lot of time looking for whatever book or pencil.
Disorganization costs a lot of time.
Costs a lot of money, and then you'll feel like you're floundering if you can't move forward if you can't find your materials.
Right, and I think also that kids pick up on that, and then they don't feel like you know what you're doing.
Because you don't.
And right. And then if they don't feel like you know what you're doing, they're not as willing to cooperate. They're like, I don't think
I'm not following you because you don't know where you're
going.
Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, and it's not like, it'll just be subtle attitudes or things like that. So, even if you don't feel super confident, just, project the confidence out so your kids can come along with you, and while you're building your confidence.
I think that's why so many people feel compelled to have their desks and their schoolrooms set up.
Yes.
Because then it does, and the value is having a place for those school materials. So we never had desks or a schoolroom, but we definitely had places where the books belonged on these shelves, and these are the containers for the school supplies. And then each one of my kids had a big, like a portable office file box, and all their school materials were in that box, and then those boxes had a place. And so things went where they belonged. And that was one of the ways that I could keep going, because we didn't have to waste time figuring out where things were.
Right.
Just pick it up and get back to work.
Exactly. So surviving is really mainly a matter of having schedules and a little organization.
Right.
And being
Some
flexible.
sort of a plan, a flexible plan.
Yeah.
And also tapping into the community.
Yeah, definitely.
Get the help out there for the people who've done it before you that are right there in your town and who are in the same stage of homeschooling, like all younger children or all high school age children, people who are in the same boat.
And even new people I've seen, and it warms my heart. So somebody will say, well, I just started too, and that happened to me, and here's what I did. And
I love that.
Just sharing your life and what you've done and how it's helped you or what you've encountered. Those kind of experiences help to build confidence and help to solve problems. Even if you're new, you can help solve somebody else's problem. So I think that's great too. Just really get active on those groups.
Okay, at this time in our podcast, we like to answer questions from our listeners. Holly, would you like to introduce a question?
Carrie S. has written in asking, is there such a thing as a homeschool counselor? I'm new to homeschooling and I have no clue how to start.
Oh, that is a good question.
Yeah, we've all been there, right? We decide to homeschool and then we think, where do I go to get some guidance on this issue?
Okay, well, we've already mentioned finding groups on social media and finding your local homeschooling groups, but there is an organization that we know about. Our good friend Mary has. You want to tell everyone?
Yes. So our friend Mary developed a course, and she has it free online. It's called Smoothing the Way, and it helps people through their first year of homeschooling. And it's a really neat curriculum, I guess you could call it, for home educators. And it takes you, every month there's a different topic. And it just takes you through the things that you encounter in your first year of homeschooling. So the URL is smoothingtheway.wixsite.com. That's WIXSITE for Wix site. And the way this curriculum was developed was that Mary was part of our group that we had here in Central Texas called CHIACT, and they had monthly in-person meetings where people would come to ask questions about homeschooling. And she started realizing, there's a need for people to have some help through their first year. The beauty of her having created this curriculum and having it on a website is that any homeschooler anywhere in the country or around the world can access this great information.
Right.
So
at any time.
At any time.
So you could pick up with the beginning no matter what month it was.
Right. So it's a really great resource. I would call that your homeschool counselor online. And then many other places where you can purchase curriculum, they have advice for getting started. They'll have advice for what courses a 9th grader should take or what courses a 2nd grader should take. So there are lots of places to find a homeschool counselor, so to speak.
Sometimes it's going to be someone in the local group who who just a few years down the road ahead of you.
Yep, that's for sure.
Or someone, like we've made all the mistakes and I can tell you this will not work. And yeah, that's probably a good idea, but maybe don't do this.
Right, exactly.
Find somebody who'll be honest with you about what's the best parts and, what do we call it? The good, the bad, and the ugly.
The good, the bad, and the ugly. That's right. Yeah. Those days when you have to take a teacher work day because your yard's so overgrown the HOA is going to give you a fine.
Yeah, or mommy needs a timeout.
Right, so. Mommy needs a timeout. That's for sure. Sometimes that's exactly the case. So yeah, again, in-person meetings might not be really happening this year, so it might be hard to find someone to talk to face-to-face, but there are lots of options for getting the support you need.
I have seen a lot of people using the social media groups to ask questions, and sometimes just some really heartfelt answers. It's good. People are finding community somehow.
Yep, that's for sure.
If you have homeschooling questions, please send them to us on Twitter at _homeschoolpod or email us at happyhomeschoolpod@gmail.com.
And you can find us on Facebook by searching for the Happy Homeschooler Podcast. We've got a page set up where you can send questions and see when we publish our podcasts and other things.
Thank you for joining us today. I'm Melody.
I'm Holly.
Happy homeschooling. Hi, this is your host, Melody Gillum. Thank you for listening to the Happy Homeschooler Podcast, a Transcript Maker Production. My co-host is Holly Williams Urbach. This episode was produced by Matthew Bass and edited by Norah Williams. Our graphic design is by Pete Soloway, and our music is by the Great Pangolin. You can find her music on YouTube and Twitter at Kylie Wins. That's Kailey Wins. If you'd like to help our podcast grow, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcasts. Or, as always, tell people about us. You know, I think that's a good Transcript Maker is a good
It is good.
I can't